Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tim McCarthy, host of the podcast 20 Tim Minutes. I have a special guest on today. He's a man who battled and won against his addictions, a cancer survivor, and an actor who is most famous for his role as Eddie Munster on the Munsters, the legendary Butch Patrick. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for taking the time to talk with me. This is a real honor. As being a big Munsters fan, it's a real big honor.
I can tell with your Munster Go Home poster off your right shoulder.
Yep, and I got Herman hanging around. It's perfect. I got these things in the other room. My Munsters Funko Pops.
Oh, your pop vinyls.
Yeah, they're in front of my TV. Those are elite.
Oh yeah, those themselves are quite a phenomenon. They're almost like the Beanie Babies thing.
Yeah.
You know, they're crazy popular.
Crazy popular, and they're not gonna be worth anything in like 10 years.
No, I think they will be. Unlike Beanie Babies.
Butch, this is a bit cliche, but let's start from the beginning with you. You were a child actor for one of the greatest shows of all time. What was it like being a child actor in Hollywood where there was pretty much no rules and it's lawless in the 60s and 70s?
Well, in my particular life, a couple things, a lot of people will say, when did you decide to become an actor? And very few children, in my opinion, actually go to their parents and say, I want to be an actor. I'm sure it occurred, but most of the time, it's just a accidental situation that presents itself, that you stumble into it, and that's exactly what happened to me. The actual story was Mary Grady, who became like the go-to first child agent in Hollywood, was working for another agency, and she wanted to open up the first kids agency. So she had a friend who knew my mom's husband who wanted to be mayor. So this guy wanting to be mayor thought it would be a good idea to get my dad's endorsement. And by doing that, he wanted to put my little sister into the movies. And I went along that day for the ride to the photographer. And during that photography shoot, the gentleman, when he was done, his name was Amos Carr, he looked over at me and he goes, he's got a good look. You mind if I put a little hat on him and take a picture just for my files? And my mom goes, yeah, sure, go ahead. So he put that picture in his studio window up on Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, wherever it was. And about a month later, a producer and a director happened to be walking by, and they looked over, and they happened to be casting a movie. So all these occurrences had to fall into line, and they basically sought me out. And then Mary called and said, look, we got these people that have doing this movie up at 20th. Would Butch be interested in going on an interview? Now, I'm in the second grade, so it's like I'm not making major decisions. But I agreed to go on the interview, and I read my lines. I wasn't intimidated, and I had a good memory. And one thing led to another, and they offered me this part, and that was my first role. And it was a great little B movie starring Eddie Albert, Jane Wyatt, Brenda Lee, and Soupy Sales. And it gave me 6 weeks experience, which, got me comfortable with doing it. And during that time, I also picked up a Kellogg's Cornflakes commercial, which won an award for being like one of the best commercials of the year. And it showed me, I was like the little kid eating my cereal, reading from the back of the cereal box. So it focused on me a lot. And then after that, I picked up The Real McCoys and General Hospital, and one thing led to another.
You're on General Hospital?
The first episode ever, and maybe the first 15 episodes. Yeah.
No kidding. Being on the Munsters, did you know at the time it was going to be such a big hit? No,
we didn't. It was very, very unusual. And here's another example of falling into that character and that role. I was living in Illinois. My stepdad, who we mentioned earlier with the Angels, had gotten traded to the Washington Senators. So the family moved to D.C. I landed in Illinois with my grandmother in the 5th grade, and they had cast a movie with a kid named Happy Durman. The networks turned it down. Bill Mooney was offered the role before Happy Durman, and he didn't want to do it because of the makeup. So by proxy, so to speak, I came into the thing, and then they flew me out for a screen test with Yvonne DiCarlo, who they wanted to bring in to replace Joan Marshall for the pilot. One thing led to another. Me and Yvonne tested. They hired me. Now I'm in California with no family. How do I get to work every day? So what I did is I moved in with my uncle, who would pick me up at the airport for the interview. And we hired a woman to take me to work every day. And then once a month, I would fly back to D.C. to visit my family. So that was kind of a winding up in this role that would define my life practically, was accidental at the most too. So it's very my particular career. I was never an actor. I just happened to be a kid who was comfortable in the acting role, but I was looking to do it as a long-term, my end game was getting enough money to buy a race car and be a race car driver. That was always my plan.
I love it. How old were you at this time?
For the Munsters, I had just turned 11.
That's fantastic. So you didn't even want to be an actor, really. You go there and you're like, oh, I killed it.
I told everybody when I was a kid actor that I would quit the day I was 18, because the day you become 18, you don't have the child labor laws protecting you. So to me, it was always, as soon as I'm 18, I'm out of here. You guys work too hard.
Now, with child stars, there's always like a stigma behind it, because usually when they grow up, they hit a lot of snags in their career and they turn to drugs and alcohol. Did that happen with you?
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with the timing and the 60s and the 70s and being in the right area to where bad behavior was considered to be okay. But it wasn't only Hollywood. The whole country was like, when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, I'll give you an example. I did a movie for Chuck Jones called The Phantom Toll Booth in 68. And we filmed the opening and the closing in San Francisco. And we're driving by Haight-Ashbury, which is like the ground zero for the psychedelic boom and the Grateful Dead. And I mean, this is what's going on in the counterculture situation back then, because from 64 to 68, that 4-year window, if you just look at what happened in 4 years, the way people looked, the way their hair, their dress and everything, it was a huge explosion of everybody was tuning in, turning on and dropping out and getting high. And that was what everybody was looking to do. Woodstock was, anyway, it was there. And if you had that desire, which I did, it was a very good place to be if you wanted to experiment, which I did.
Did anyone get you into it? Or you just like, you know what, this is what I want to do? Like you said, you
No.
saw too many Jimi Hendrix concerts. Go again?
No, I sought it out.
How did you sort it out at that age? What age did you start?
Well, I was 15, and I just done an Adam 12 of all things, where I played a kid that slashed the cops' tires. And while I was on that shoot, I befriended, I'm not going to name names, but I befriended another person who lived in the Valley, and he had an older brother and an older sister, and his dad had a very cool job in Beverly Hills with the in scene and all this stuff. So I remember very vividly, I say, how much for a joint, how much for a red, and how much for, I was like, supermarket shopping, and everything was like 25 cents. It was like really cheap.
Really?
So I remember that was, and plus, you're sneaking cigarettes out of your mom's purse and just all this stuff. And, the liquor cabinet wasn't locked. So you'd, make a concoction of all these crazy and stupid little drinks because you didn't want any bottle to be less than the other bottle. So you'd put 7 or 8 half shots into a mixing bowl. And
smart.
Anyway, it was crazy. But that was how I started experimenting. Yeah.
What are some of the drugs that you took?
Everything except I never did heroin, and I never put a needle on my arm.
Now, did you do Quaaludes?
I was Mr. Quaalude.
What was that like? Because I feel like that's like a
I had 500 milligram capsules. The normal roar was 325 in a pill form, and I had capsules that looked like like a vitamin that was 500 milligrams. And the fact that they were only 90 cents a piece.
Eddie Munster at 15 doing Quaaludes. That's
no, this was at 15. That didn't happen. No, that didn't happen until I was in my 20s.
Okay. A little bit better, but not great.
No, I progressed slowly through it. I started off with, and that's another thing people don't understand too, is, it was like you start off with weed and a pill here or a pill there. And I never really was a big pill person. That wasn't really my deal. The Quaaludes, I kind of fell into my lap, and it was just a money-making opportunity. And plus everybody was looking for Quaaludes back then. It was like this mystery drug that nobody knew what they were for, but everybody had to have them. And to this day, they're one of the few drugs that the FDA never had a purpose for them. They were really just fabricated to get people call them fender benders,
That's very interesting. That's funny at all. So how was it growing up with you getting all this money? How much were you getting paid back then? So weed's about 25 cents. So what are you making at that age?
It was under $1,000 a week, but it was pretty decent money. I made more money than my dad, my stepdad, who played pro ball.
Wow.
And he was a professional baseball player. And the reason I say that, it gives you an idea of how things have changed in the whole, movie star money, baseball player money. Back in the old days, you didn't make a whole lot more than the average guy who was a plumber or a mechanic. Maybe made twice or three times more. Not like today where you get a $20 million contract and you're making hundreds and hundreds more, of times the money of an average Joe. Because in the old days, most baseball players had a job in the off season.
Right. Now, to back up a little bit, so do you think weed is a gateway drug?
Do what?
Do you think weed is a gateway drug?
Oh, no, actually, alcohol always led me to the other things. Alcohol was my go-to thing, and that was soon as if I never drank alcohol, I probably wouldn't have tried the other stuff. But the alcohol, the beer is where I started, and that's what kind of send me down the path.
Right, and impairs your judgment, so why not? People handing you drugs, I'm like, oh, I'll take this.
It was all about adjusting. If I had a beer, then I wanted to have something else to balance it out. And then I'd go this way, then I'd go this way. And it was a never ending cycle of wanting to adjust the mood or adjust the television set you were watching. I like to use that as an analogy. And that's one of the reasons why I finally got sober, which we'll cover, is how I came to get sober was the fact that I learned to not need to adjust my thoughts, be happy where I was at.
For people listening right now, Butch is 11 plus years sober. So congrats to you, sir, for still.
Yeah, 11 after 41 years of partying, 11 and 5. And back. And then here's another thing you're talking about. You got to remember 1969 was a real pivotal year for a lot of things. And for me, I turned 16, got my first real girlfriend and had a love affair. And then they landed on the moon. September, I got my license in August. I'm driving up to Hollywood Boulevard, at the top of Sunset and Laurel Canyon. My girlfriend lived up there. Charlie Manson was running amok. So you had Manson in a hillside nearby, craziness of the moon landing. I got my license, I got my girlfriend. And then in September, the same friend who I mentioned earlier from Adam 12, I drove him to an interview. And during the interview, the producer came out and looked at me, and he then interviewed me, even though I was just the Uber driver that day. And I wound up getting that part. And then 4 days later, I was in Brazil with no teacher and no parent. And all I had to do was show up for work every day in this movie, which I did. But after I was done working, I was a 16-year-old kid with a pocket full of money in Salvador Bahia, Brazil, for 3 months. And that's when everything went wide open. And in fact, as my sister would mention at my AA chip meetings, she says he left as Richie Cunningham and he came back as John Lennon.
Oh, I like that a lot. People don't know this from Happy Days. Remember when Richie Cunningham had a brother? He went upstairs and he just never came back down.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I'm talking to Clint Howard the other day, and Clint and I are friends. And but that's when it happened. I left in September. I came back in December of the end of '69, and all bets were off. I was a whole different person, and it was party time, party central, and then that led to me kind of phasing out of the business because I'm smoking joints on the way to interviews, which is not a good idea. And it was kind of like I lost my professional edge. It was all I wanted to do was party, and I just didn't. I was going to this Hollywood professional school that because when I went to Brazil, Gardena High wouldn't allow me to leave that long without losing a grade. So I didn't want to lose a grade. So I went to this Hollywood professional school, which catered to Hollywood kids. So I would supposedly send them my homework, which I never did. I blamed it on Brazilian mail. I said, I sent it in every week. You didn't get any of it? No. So they let me pass, and I made it through there. And that's kind of how everything just kind of created this whole era. From the time I was 16 to 18 was craziness because I was living like an adult. I was still at home, but I was never home. You know what I mean?
Addiction obviously is a serious topic, but looking back on it in hindsight, it is interesting because I just picture Butch Patrick like on drugs and there's a moon landing and Charles Manson is running amok, and you're probably like, what the fuck is going on in the world right now?
Yeah, it was great cars, and I'm going to the drag strip. And the funny part, it was a little bit before that when my dad was playing pro ball. I had this idyllic lifestyle. I was at the studio, roaming the back lot of Universal, rubbing elbows with everybody, having a wonderful time, cruising down to George Barris's shop, seeing the best cars, going to the ballpark early, shagging flies, getting to know all the major players and all the teams. Because the Munsters was real popular. Oh, yeah. So the other teams would take you into their dugout and let you sit around and hit your pop-ups. And, it was like I couldn't have asked for a better childhood, literally. It was like, gosh,
And that was your stepfather, correct?
stepfather, Ken Hunt. Yes.
So what was your father like growing up? Your birth father?
I didn't actually know my dad. My mom and my dad, when I was born, they kind of separated. They were like high school sweethearts, and it just didn't work out. So I stayed with my mom and my grandma and my uncle. They had a house, and that's where, that's pretty much where I grew up until my mom got married to Dave, who adopted me when Michelle was born. And that's kind of where I remember now. I connected with my biological father when I was about 10 years old, and we became friends and stayed friends for the rest of his life. So that was all right. But it was a very unusual situation. I was, everybody says, did you have a bad childhood? I said, no, I didn't have a bad childhood. I just had a very unusual childhood.
I understand what that is. I also found out I had a biological father after an ancestry test, so I know how those homes work.
Well, I could see myself because when Alan, he's driving a Corvette, he's living at the beach. I'd go get weed from him. I mean, literally, I could see myself in him. I go, well, this is where my genes. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I was pretty much born into it. And that doesn't make him a bad guy. You just sort of see the writing on the wall that, same car, same lifestyle, same habits, same type of girlfriends. This is who I am.
Who were you starstruck more with, baseball players or actors and actresses? Who is there anyone that stands out? You like, holy shit.
There's a bit I like to say there's 3 people, maybe 4 people that I remember that I was maybe at the time, but in hindsight now, I was really lucky to have met. I met Walt Disney when I was doing some Disney work, but I actually met him before I actually started any of his movies, because I was a little kid whenever they would have the Wonderful World of Disney would be like the sign-off show on Sunday nights. Everybody would watch. It was, color TV had just come out. And I did a little thing where I'm supposed to be the kid watching the Main Street Parade, and he picks me up. What do you think, little Billy? Oh, gee, Mr. Disney, I think it's his wonderful. Now, I went on to actually work for Disney after that, but that's how I met him. Then I met Rod Serling. I know my favorite all-time show has always been The Twilight Zone. And I met him briefly at Paramount when I was doing Lidsville. And I was really looking forward to meeting him. And when I walked up to him and met him briefly, it was like, I get it now. And I was polite and I left, and I go, he definitely has something going on beyond what we have known as normal humans. I think he might have like alien connections. I really do. Because number one, I was always admired the stuff he would write was just so cool. But number two, looking at it, I just felt that he had some kind of something going on that beyond the normal human existence. So I think he might have extraterrestrial, blood in him or something. I don't know. And then the last one was Evel Knievel. When I did the Little Caesars commercials, meeting Evel, because he was like larger than life. I figured he probably was like a Muhammad Ali. I never had the pleasure of meeting Muhammad Ali, but that kind of presence when you walk into a room. And you got to imagine what this guy did. I mean, he was like, just doing wheelies and jumping bushes. He would fill a stadium with 100,000 people for hours, and they would pay to watch him jump stuff. And literally, he was like the last of the showman, daredevil type guys. He was huge. And I got to know him and became friends with him. I was like, really, I really knew him well. He loaned me his helmet. I'd go do like a go-kart race. I have an Evel Knievel helmet on. People would like, get out of my way.
Without Evel Knievel, Jackass wouldn't be around, I feel like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now with the Twilight Zone, I feel like that's an underrated show. We're going to go back to your life growing up, but I just got to ask a quick question about the Twilight Zone. What's your favorite episode?
Oh, I probably there's so many of them. I love the one, for some reason, the one Willoughby resonates really well for me. The guy he's pressured, and all he wants to do is go back to a simpler time. And it kind of reminds me when I was living with my grandmother in this small town, and I'd go back and forth between Hollywood, and Hollywood would be high pressure and all this stuff. And then I'd go back to this small town. And I used to always wonder, who's better off? The person that supposedly is successful with the big car, or the person that is going to the ice cream social in the park and a much slower pace time. And then also one of my favorites is, Anthony, Bill Mooney's, It's a Good Life is a great one. And then also I like the one with Burgess Meredith, Time at Last, when he gets the librarian after the nuclear holocaust, and he steps on his glasses and all he wanted to do was read, and now he can't even read.
They were
The
so
iron. There's so many I could go on for hours with different ones.
right. I feel like most people's favorite is the the pig faces or the alien faces when they he gets constructive surgery on her face.
Oh, is that like Donna Douglas?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I
Is
feel like
that the
that's
one where they finally do, and they all look like they all
yep,
look like pigs, and she's normal? Yeah,
yep.
that's Donna Douglas. That's a good one.
That's a classic one. All right, let's back up a little bit. So you're partying, doing drugs. How was it the party scene growing up and going with that? But then second of all, like, did you realize you had a problem and when was that?
No, what happened is I always just wanted to be accepted by my peers, and one of the ways I was doing that was by throwing parties. And I had my Mach 1, and I'm down at the gas station. My mom would, she would enable me a little bit by, if I wanted a case of beer, she would buy me a case of beer. I would then take it down to the gas station where all the guys would be working on their cars. And you get to know people. And then got to be the go-to guy. If you needed weed or something, I would usually have it, all the way to high school through that type of thing. But you got to remember, back then it wasn't a money making venture. It was just buying it, selling it to your friends, and breaking even. So it wouldn't cost you anything. And that way, it was on the whole mindset of the whole, tune in and share a joint. It wasn't paying the bills. It was simply trying not to spend money on it. It was like a break-even deal, and that was actually kind of fun. And it was a whole different mindset back then, and that's how the hippie movement was all about. Sharing this and sharing that. When it became a monetary gain thing, the whole dynamic of the whole world changed a lot, where it became very dangerous, and it became the activity and the law kind of caught up with it. Because back in the day when I was doing it, nobody thought about anything was wrong with it. It was like just a lifestyle. It was like people were living in communes and growing it. It was just, it wasn't a big problem. But that's, for me, was a way for me to get to know my friends and be accepted by everybody in school, was to be the guy that do the great parties, which I did.
Did everyone get excited when they met you? They're like, "Oh my God, you're Eddie Munster."
Some did, some, yeah, most not excited. I wouldn't say excited, curious a little bit. But most kids, there's a lot of bullying going on. As a little guy, and people by nature, kids especially, can be very, jealous or snide, or, you could be the butt of their jokes. And, they would want to make themselves look better amongst their peers by choosing you as a target. And it would be easy, but I had very thick skin. And in fact, when I went back into junior high school after the Munsters, the problem was during nutrition, after nutrition, I was in a school of 3,500 students, big junior high school.
Wow.
And it was a melting pot. We had about 25% white, 25% black, 25% Asian, and 25% Spanish, Mexican. So every kind of thing was represented, every kind of nationality. But after nutrition, these kids wouldn't go back to class. They'd all hang around and poke fun at me while I was sitting on my little snack bench, eating a honey bun with my orange juice. So they decided the easiest way for them to fix this problem was to just expel me, get me off the property, which they did. And I had an option. I had an opportunity. I could go back to school and face the music, or I could go to a private school. And I didn't want to go to a private school. I wanted to go to a public school because I wanted to be accepted. So we made an arrangement where I went back. We gave it another 2 days, and the crowds became smaller and smaller and smaller every day. And by the end of the week, it was pretty much back to normal. But to this day, 57 years later, there's still people that come knock on my mom's door. Is this where Eddie Munster lives? So we still own the same house.
That's funny. Now, I'll say this. Short people are elite. I'm 5'7". I'm a short guy. I know how it is to get picked on. Know what else, too? Short people live forever, because have you ever seen like a 6'5", like 80, 90-year-old? It's always the short guys that live.
Look at how long little people live in Hollywood.
Yeah.
The little kids.
Yeah, the Lollipop Guild, they were like 90-year-olds like doing the dance.
Yeah, I've got longevity in my family. We just lost my uncle at 92, and then 2 years before that, my Aunt Peggy was 93, and then Aunt Betty was 95, and my grandma lived into her 90s, and her mom lived into her 90s. So, yeah, I'm 68 right now, so I figure I got another 20 years left.
And Butch, you look great, my man. You look great.
Thank you.
When you were getting older and you were drinking and feeling bad, because it's only been 11 years you've been sober. So how was that like? Have you been inspiring anybody? Like, what happened?
Well, yeah, I suppose one of the deals of my sobriety was I had been tippy-toeing around the issue for years. I had a friend, a high school friend, who got sober about 12 years before I did. And then I had a cousin who lived next door who got sober about 7 years before I did. Between those two people, every once in a while when I wake up feeling really bad and know that, the deal was, it was like, you want to just have another day like this, which sometimes it's easier than to say, I've been doing it wrong for 40 years and face the music and look in the mirror. But every once in a while, I would sort of reach out and inquire, just sort of curiosity, little inquiries. And let anybody knows, you can't make anybody change until they want to change. So that's kind of how it started, with inquiring about with my friend Chris and with Mike about how their sobriety was going. And then finally in 2010, right around Thanksgiving, the situation happened to where I had done a project I mean, literally, I was at that point, I was like not able to go to a sleep cycle without drinking. I'd wake up about 3 a.m. and have to power through 3 beers to get back to sleep. And I'm drinking about 30 beers a day at that point. And I had lost a kidney in 76, not due to drinking, but due to like a dirt bike accident where a handlebar punched me in the side and my kidney just got larger and larger. So they removed it. But I went about my life as, that's why you have two. You can live with one. But I continued drinking and drinking and drinking. And then what happened at that time was a place called Oasis Treatment Center in Anaheim, right next to Disneyland, one of my favorite places. A friend of mine opened the Yellow Pages in California to look for treatment center. And it just so happened, this is like a God shot. Opened up, Oasis was on the page. It was the first thing he saw. Not an A, not a C, just Oasis. And he called him out of the blue. And the woman that answered, Stacy, who was administrations, she basically, he said, I got a Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster. She goes, oh my gosh, you got to wait. Hold on. I got to get Jim, the owner of the center. And he got on the phone and he basically wanted to work. He wanted to treat a kid actor real badly, because he knew if he could get them sober, that they could spread the word and help get the word out by television and media. So it was kind of like he was using me as a tool, and if I would come out there, he would sponsor me, because it was like $35,000. I didn't have insurance. So the deal was, I flew out to just check the place out for a couple of weeks nearby where my mom and everybody lived. I didn't really plan on staying. It was a 90-day program, and I figured after a few weeks I kind of knew enough, and I didn't want to leave. And then they put you on the porch. They call porching you, to where you go out, and the counselor would say, why are you in such a hurry to leave? What do you got? Where are you going? Why don't, is there anything wrong? And they'd talk you off the ledge. And after about 6 weeks, I dropped the rock and had gotten enough education to where I knew this is where I wanted to stay, and sobriety, and this is why. And then they gave you the tools to work it, because the old saying is, anybody can get sober. The trick is staying sober. And that's kind of how it happened. It was just happenstance, right phone call, right place, right people. And then Jim, who I'm very good friends with still, and he asked me, he says, if you do what I say and learn and do this thing properly, you can reach millions of people. And he goes, in my 22 years, I've reached like 8,000 people, and you can do so much good for people by just playing it forward and being visible about it. It's called AA, but that was back in the 30s, when it was like a real stigma attached to it. Right. Nowadays, there are a lot of old school people that still feel it should be anonymous, but there's a whole lot of other people that are very visible about it as well, and I'm one of those.
Were you nervous about coming out with that?
Excuse me?
Were you nervous about coming out with that?
No, not at all.
That's fantastic.
No. In fact, that's one of the things I enjoy doing. Is I'm very proud of the fact I've never turned down a speaker meeting, if I'm able. And by doing a lot of the visibility on Facebook and other social medias, I can't really sponsor people because I'm on the road so much. Mm-hmm. But I have helped a lot of people with almost. One of the funny things I found out is, in this day and age with the opiate epidemic and this and that and everything going on, very few families, very few people don't know someone in their inner circle that has issues. It's pretty prevalent that almost every family's got one person, whether it be immediate family or extended family, but almost everybody knows someone that needs help. And I've helped a lot of people take that first step about how to go about getting started. And that's a big step because it took me 9 years to figure out how to get started. And so if I can steer people towards that, and the fact that I was a kid actor and now I'm an adult and now I'm doing this and I've been through it, and they can identify with that. I'm really proud of the fact that I have a lot of people that have reached out and have told me, and I visited them. They say, my son's still sober, and the trick is to let them know that the biggest thing for me was it was like God makes no mistakes. I got spiritual, and the fact is, for me, looking forward, not looking backward, was very important.
Congrats, sir. I'm very happy for you with that.
Thanks.
Now, many people probably know this. You probably know this. Is alcohol is the only thing that you withdraw from that you can die from. Out of all the drugs, did you know that?
You can't OD on alcohol.
No. Like anything, like alcohol. If you're like you're a severe alcoholic and you try to withdraw from it on your own, you can die from that. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
That's super interesting. Now, with all this going on, were you depressed at all? You must have been, right?
No. Actually, I was very lucky. What happened with me, and Jim told me this, because a lot of people, especially people that like 41 years, it's a very tough road. They have meetings, or they're going to church. They have a lot of day-to-day battles with the addiction and the desire to use or drink. He said, Butch, you don't know how lucky you are. He goes, you had a burning bush experience to where, for some reason, God just eliminated all desires for you to want to use and drink and partake. And that's true. And it's like, I don't have any, it's been really easy for me. I don't take it for granted. I'm appreciative of it. And, I hit my knees every day, and I'm always thankful. And I have a gratitude list, and I try to have a good attitude. But the bottom line is I've been very lucky that it came easy, but I stay in the moment and I don't take it for granted.
That's fantastic, sir. Now, in between all this, you were diagnosed with prostate cancer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually one of the funniest stories of all. Is I went into the center, and there happened to be a doctor in there that was in for another unrelated matter. Old guy like myself, a little older than me, actually. I was 57. I think he was 60. We became friends. And as soon as I got sober, I was about 3 months sober, I went up for a checkup, and they found out that I had a very high PSA number, and a very small mass. And they thought it had spread into my bone marrow. And I go, isn't this amazing? Here I am. I finally, kind of figure I'm going to straighten up, and then I get cancer, and it's going to punch my ticket right when I thought, because I used to think when I was drinking, I go, how is this all going to end? It's not going to end well, real badly. And then I figured, and the irony of it, getting sober and then getting a cancer death sentence. But what happened was my doctor luckily knew, he's a very influential doctor, and he fast tracked me into St. John's in Santa Monica with his Rockstar Ninja doctor buddies. And they got me into surgery like within a week. And had they not got me in, I was like, another 2 weeks, I probably wouldn't have made it. So there's another God shot, of situations that present themselves. So apparently I'm here for a reason, and talking to you is a perfect example of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that's happening right now. You don't understand how much this means to me that you're on with me. You seem like a guy that just right place, right time for everything. Your acting career, like the rehab and the cancer, like that's at least 3 for 3.
Yeah, it is, and I had absolutely. I've been so blessed with so much good stuff, and I've been so stupid and done so much bad stuff. But I've always considered myself a good person. I've never really thought I was a bad guy. But that's in my mindset. I used to, like at the meetings, like, oh, I never thought I was going to hurt. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm only hurting myself. Well, that's such BS, because once you get sober, you know how much damage you did to the people that care for you. So that's one of the ones. But I've had a miraculous run. And honestly, if something happened to me today, if I just keeled over right now, I mean, I wouldn't feel shortchanged. But at the same time, yeah, it's wonderful to be able to help other people, be part of the solution, not part of the problem. All the waking up every day with money in your pocket and no hangovers, and not looking around in the ashtray for a roach or see if you get some remnants off the floor from the crack rock you had. I mean, it was just a horrible lifestyle. But it was all for a reason. And that's what keeps me sane now, is I know that it's not wasted time. It was just bringing me to where who I am today, to help others.
And how would you help others? What is something you would recommend to someone battling with addiction right now?
Well, literally by example is one, talking about stuff that, it's not like I'm really proud of what I did or how I went about it. It's like I had a huge career. It's like, me and Ronnie Howard are doing the Smith family together. I went to Brazil and he went to USC and became a film student. Well, had I not, you can't beat yourself up over what you didn't do. So literally, what I hope to do is this summer, I'm doing a residency at a place called Indiana Beach, which is a theme park. I have tons of ideas and marketing ideas, and I'm working with this Veterans Administration thing with a gentleman out of Chicago who created a program to help veterans get their benefits and help them get to places that they deserve. That's one of my things that I really want to do, is help them. I also make myself available for speaker meetings, so you never know where you're going to be helping people. So I just know by example I've helped. I can't say how many, but I know I've helped people. So that's a good thing going on. And by helping people, you help yourself and you follow the rules. And it's just a good feeling knowing that you're doing good work and you're moving forward, and you're doing it. You're doing it sober.
It could be 1,000 people or one person, but that's great that you've done that, sir. Now, there's a question for you. Do you live with any regrets in your career, in your life?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Everybody's got those. My favorite one is I'm at the beach surfing. An unknown guy shows up named George Lucas. I don't know who George Lucas was. I got long hair down to here. And I get out of the water and he weighs me down, and basically we have a conversation regarding this movie that he's doing, and about his childhood up in middle of California somewhere. I don't know, wherever, Modesto or Stockton, wherever American Graffiti was done. Right. So he goes, "But you're going to have to cut your hair." I go, that ain't going to happen. I got hair like Robert Plant. It's down to here. So, nope, sorry, can't do that. Good luck with your little movie. Bye. Got to go surf. Oh. But a year and a half later, I'm up in Sacramento, visit my friend, and we go to the movie, and I see American Graffiti, and I went, "Oh my God." I go, "This is like really bad." And so the part that he had offered me that I turned down was for Richard Dreyfuss's part, actually the lead part in the movie. And I just, said, no, thank you. But every actor in Hollywood has some of those stories. It's not uncommon. The funny part about it was I turned down Lidsville 3 different times and didn't want to do it at all. And finally wound up doing it for the wrong reasons, was doing it for the paycheck and figuring everybody would be asleep on Saturday morning and no one would ever see this silly Saturday morning show. And here I am next month. We're going to be doing a CroftCon up in at the Orinda Theater in Orinda, up by the Bay Area, and there we are. 50 some odd years later, and we're still doing Lidsville stuff. So it's like it never leaves.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, you probably punched in the air after watching that movie. Like, I could have been me. It could have been me.
It's crazy. I mean, I never wanted. I was never an actor. I was the kid who could act. It came naturally to me. It was never a career. The only thing that kind of happened in my life back when I was 18 was it was the last year of the lottery for Vietnam, and I had a very low number. And with people that can remember this, the lowest 100 birth dates mean you were going to get drafted. My number was 41, and my best friend's number was 44. So we both pretty much were convinced we were going to go die in Vietnam. That was, we just figured. And so what I did was they changed the voting law from 21 to 18 when I was just turning 19. So I petitioned the courts to change that law for kid actors to be able to get their money out, because I said, hey, if you're 18, you're going to go to war, and you can vote at 18, you can go die at 18. You should be able to get your money at 18. Which they agreed, and then they got that law changed. But the problem was they gave me my money. I thought I was going to die, so I went and blew it all, like in no time. And then I went up for the induction for my medical examination, and I failed it because I had a bad knee from a skiing accident, so I wasn't going to go anyway. So here I go, Well, this didn't work out well at all because, I blew the money. I'm not going to Vietnam. And one thing led to another. And that's kind of how I just sort of phased out of the Hollywood business all at the same time. It was like the summer of 71, 72.
I wonder if Butch Patrick took American Graffiti if he would have been in Star Wars, though. I'm a big Star Wars fan. That would have been great to see. As Butch Patrick, again, big Star Wars guy. Big Munsters guy, big Star Wars guy. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, but the funny thing about this, talk about a story is Paul LeMat, who Big John Milner was offered the part of Han Solo, and he turned it down.
Yeah, I always hear about that, like actors and actresses always being like that. But then you look back, you're like, were they meant to be or not? But obviously they weren't because they didn't take it. So
Yeah.
your career would have been probably different.
Was that?
Your career probably could have been worse if you took American Graffiti.
No, I love what I did. I worked 15, 16 years in the business, had a good window from 60 to 74. Couldn't have asked for a better time to be alive. Great cars, great music, great TV, movies. I'm very blessed.
All right, sir. We're going to end with this. I'm going to do a lot of Munsters questions real quick. Is that okay with you?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
All right. Pat Priest or Beverly Owen?
I love Pat Priest very much, but I had a huge crush on Beverly Owen.
Yeah?
So, yes, Beverly Owen, yeah.
Wasn't she your first, kiss on the cheek?
Beverly was wonderful. She had one of my favorite memories was on her day off. She knew I had a crush on her. She drove her little Volkswagen all the way down to Gardena to take me all the way back to Hollywood to go see Mary Poppins when Mary Poppins had just come out. And it was like, I like to tell people that was my first date was with Beverly Owen, Marilyn Munster.
That's fantastic. Do you hate Batman, especially Adam West, for what happened?
No, I love Adam West. Adam's great. It was so campy and so funny, and it was a great way to go off the air. It was a transitional period. Color came in. Batman was strong, and it was to our credit they put their best show up against us, and eventually they won. That was the fourth show that ABC had put up against us, so we were doing very, very well until Batman.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Batman came in color. Was it the first show in color?
It was one of the first ones. It might have been I think Walt Disney's World of Color and Batman. They were like the go-to showcase the new technology. Yeah.
So yeah, the Munsters were black and white. So anyone out there that Batman came in and just didn't bode well for the Munsters, unfortunately.
No.
The Munsters coach or Dragula?
Well, I have one of each. The coach is like the original minivan. It's cool to drive and very recognizable and has suspension. The Dragula is great at a drag strip where it's very smooth because it's solid axle. It's apples and oranges. They're both great respectively, but I suppose if I could only have one, I'd take the coach.
I love it. Yeah, I feel like the coach, you can have multiple people in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Have you ever been to that house? I think it's in Texas or something. That's like the Munsters house. Like some person recreated it.
Yeah, Sandra and Chuck McKee. I was actually there the first year they opened it up to the public. It's been about 20 years now. Amazing house. It's a must-see for anybody that ever makes it to Dallas. It's in the Dallas suburb area of Waxahachie. They have tours. She does now she's doing these incredible murder mysteries. This place is a must-see place. I mean, it's just amazing, and they're very nice people. To answer your question, I've been there many, many times.
What is it about the Munsters that people love to this day?
I think it's a combination of a couple things. Number one, I think they really enjoy the whole look and the special effects and the concept of this spooky old house with, a dungeon and a dragon under the stairs and a cat that growls like a lion. Yeah. But mostly, I think they enjoy how this very odd-looking family of universal monsters that they were all familiar with comes off as Ozzie and Harriet. Or the father knows best situation. It's a very down-to-earth, family-valued show with very good comedic entertainment value, but it has family values.
That show was a great. They did everything at the right time, and my favorite things about that show was the gag of Marilyn Munster being the ugliest one out of the family. I think that is one of the most genius concepts in any show of all time, and it's still funny.
Well, and there's the one episode where I grew a beard and the beard dissolves and Herman gives me the little talk about it's not, what you look like, you're tall and short, fat or thin, or ugly or handsome like your father, or, what color your skin is. That particular little father and son chat on the value of strength of your character and the size of your heart gets like 100 million views every year. It's incredible. Considered to be like one of the best little, especially in this day and age, how everybody's going crazy, and it's one of the best. Herman Munster was a great TV dad. I mean, it was really done. It was done by the Leave It to Beaver producers, who had basically come forward with the first successful sitcom that was driven by a child, the look at the world through a child's point of view.
I love Herman Munster, and I think what I loved, I would watch it on Nick at Night. Obviously, I'm a young cat. I'm only 36. Like, I loved it. One of the funniest things he said, he had one of the best laughs. I might be butchering it. He goes, "What has 4 wheels and flies? A garbage truck." And I still use that to this day, and I think it's one of the easiest and funniest jokes to tell like young kids.
Yeah, the stupid old yuck jokes. Like when you think, what can keep something quiet in the car? Your hand over your wife's mouth.
Yeah.
Like.
Oh, I absolutely love it. His laugh was great too.
Yep.
What else do I got? Did you keep anything from the original set?
No, I used to bring stuff home and give it away to the local kids.
Oh, you're just you're a saint. Butch Patrick is a saint.
I was living it. To me, I'm not one of those collector people. Some people are very organized. I was always disorganized, but I always really enjoyed the in fact, it's one of the reasons today why when I go to, like today, I'm at New Jersey HorrorCon, and downstairs is the #1 Dragula being set up. How blessed is it when you could go sit at a table and get up and interact with someone who you now are part of unbeknownst to me, I've been part of people's living rooms and their fond memory bases for generations with their grandparents who loved the show. They watched it. Now they watch it in reruns, or they bought the DVD. And all these people engage with you, and all they want to do is share a happy moment that you brought to them. I mean, that's like positive energy on steroids constantly. And how can you not enjoy that? And it's literally, and people say, "Don't you ever get tired of it?" I go, no, I really don't. And if I did, and when I do, I will not do it anymore. Because if I'm not having a good time, it certainly isn't fair to the people who are coming to the table for you to be grumpy. And I've been next to grumpy celebrities, when they do this. And it's like, what is wrong with you? How can you check your ego at the door? And if you're not having fun, it's not fair to the people coming to the table. It really isn't. So, each their own. But I'm very blessed that I've stumbled onto a show a long time ago, family values, entertainment level, that people love meeting you, and all you got to do is smile and be nice, and everybody walks away happy.
You've lived a great life. Now, with the new Rob Zombie movie coming out, I know you've been pretty close with him recently, and you're probably excited about the movie. I know you're not going to be able to answer this, but do you have a cameo in that movie?
Can't answer
it. All right, I knew you weren't going to answer that, but are you excited for that movie to come out?
Yes, I'm excited about it. I'm really excited when I saw the PG rating.
Same.
I kind of knew. I didn't really know, but when he came out with it, I knew it was. In my thoughts, I knew it was going to be PG, but I couldn't actually confirm it because I didn't really know. But I knew that he was the right guy for the job because, number one, Universal wouldn't allow him to go too far dark on it, number one. And it took him 20 years to get to this point. And number two is a lot of people have a persona on stage or on camera that isn't really like that. Howard Stern's a very nice guy when he's off mic, and Alice Cooper, it's just, these are normal, good people. Alan's a wonderful Christian guy. I mean, he's just a wonderful person, one of the nicest people you ever want to meet, but he puts on a very cool stage show that's unlike his persona. It's an act. So with Rob, when I went to Rob's house with my Munster coach to take him for a spin, and him and Sherry Moon came out, it was very much like, going to see Mrs. Cleaver. She comes out with iced tea and in a little sundress, a little hippie dress. And it's like, oh, this is nothing like you guys are on together. And it was wonderful. So I knew for a fact that, and then a good friend of mine, Danny Roebuck, who plays Grandpa in the movie, was keeping me up on details.
That's cool.
So I knew through him what direction the movie was going.
And obviously Rob Zombie, huge Munsters guy.
This movie's going to kill. It's going to, in a really good way. No, it's going to be extreme. It's a very long movie. It's like 2 hours and 38 minutes.
No way.
But I've seen footage, and I've seen where he's going with it, and it's going to be great. It really is.
Now, is it black and white or in color? It's in color, right? Nice.
Color.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, Butch Patrick, I know what I was going to ask from earlier. So you're very memory-oriented guy, more than materialistic, obviously, right?
What was that?
You're more about memories more than materialistic things. Like
Yeah.
You get. I like that.
What I try to collect the stuff. The problem is I've always been very nomadic, and I never had any place to put stuff. So it was easier for me. And then my mom wasn't very good about keeping stuff. So, things would it just never happened. So yes, I'm more about giving stuff away than keeping it myself.
I love it. Now we're going to end with this. I ask these questions for all my guests. Butch Patrick, think of him as a boxer, wrestler, UFC fighter. He comes out to a crowd. I got to think it might be the Munsters theme, but I feel like you might have a different answer. What song plays for Butch Patrick? What is his theme song?
Oh my gosh. What is my theme song? I never really thought about a theme song. I'm a big Beatles fan. What could be a good Beatles song? Let's see. What's
I'm glad I got you. I'm glad I got a question that you've never gotten before.
You got me. Especially in an arena like that. I'm not really an arena type person. I'm more of a ballad type guy that wouldn't fit well into the thing. Well, I was always a car guy, so I figured a hard driving song that I would probably want to have playing as I walk down the ramp into the ring would be like Deep Purple's Highway Star.
Perfect. I like it. I like how we have an answer instead of the Munsters answer. That's perfect. Now, one more thing I meant to ask. I'm a huge Simpsons guy. How was it being on the Simpsons?
It was very disappointing because I loved being on the show, but I went out there and there was no other voice people there. I was by myself in a room with 16 microphones doing these stupid things, being directed to do voiceover work with nothing to bounce off of, and you're just isolated in a room, and they give you good stuff. I was happy to do it, but I didn't meet anybody.
Oh, that's a shame. I would have been pumped to meet everybody.
Yeah, it was a little disillusioning.
All right, sir. What are 3 things that you're grateful for today?
My sobriety, my health, my family.
I love it. Easy, perfect, and to the point. I love that, sir. Butch Patrick, a.k.a. Eddie Munster. You don't know how much this meant to me to chat with you. One of my favorite TV shows of all time. I got tattoos to prove it. Herman and Lily. I'm going to have to get an Eddie Munster tattoo now.
Okie dokie.
Thank you so much, Butch. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Peace.
Round 1, fight!
So you're going to be joining an elite cast of people that I do this with. I do a little rock, paper, scissors to start off my episode, a little break the ice moment. So we're going to play 2 out of 3 rock, paper, scissors. It's going to be on your call.
Okay,
rock,
go.
paper, scissors, shoot. So I'm going to close my eyes. So whenever you're ready.
Ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
What do you got? Paper? Scissors. All right, I got 1-0 on you.
Paper.
Hold on.
2, go.
Hold on. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go. Hey, scissors again.
Oh, 1-1. 1-1.
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Hold on. We got to get this thing. 1, 2, 3. We'll release. Okay, say 1, 2, 3, go.
All right. 1, 2, 3, go.
Got you.
Oh, beat by the great Butch Patrick. I love it. Fantastic. That's a good icebreaker.
But it's wearing an Angels cap.
I know. I listen to that. I have a lot of caps, and I know it. I was like, I got to go with the Angels cap for him.
You know, my stepdad was on the original Angels.
Yeah, that's what I remember hearing that with them. So I was like, I got to bust this thing out. And this thing fits perfect.
Yeah, that's
perfect. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. If you are feeling suicidal, please dial 911.
The lesson I want you to learn is it doesn't matter what you look like. You can be tall or short, or fat or thin, or ugly or handsome, like your father. You can be black or yellow or white. It doesn't matter. What does matter is the size of your heart and the strength of your character.